Hello, dear dreamers. Are you comfortable and ready for a magical adventure? Tonight, let's journey into a tale as old as time. A story of love, courage, and seeing beyond appearances. This is the enchanting tale of Beauty and the Beast. So close your eyes, relax, and let your imagination carry you to a mysterious castle hidden deep within a forest where a magical story unfolds. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a grand golden castle where a handsome but selfish young prince lived. He had everything he could ever want: splendid clothes, sumptuous feasts, and adoring subjects. But the prince had a cold heart. He cared nothing for the happiness of others, thinking only of himself. One cold, stormy night, an old beggar woman came to the castle, offering a single red rose in exchange for shelter from the bitter cold. But the prince sneered at her humble gift and turned her away. Suddenly, the old woman's haggard appearance melted away to reveal a beautiful enchantress. The prince begged for forgiveness, but it was too late. "You have a cold heart," she said, "and so you will become a beast, unloved and alone." With a flash of light, the prince transformed into a hideous beast. His servants turned into enchanted objects. The castle itself became dark and eerie. The rose she had offered was enchanted and would bloom until his 21st year. "If you can learn to love another and earn their love in return before the last petal falls," she warned, "the spell will be broken. If not, you will remain a beast forever." Ashamed of his appearance, the beast hid within his castle with a magic mirror as his only window to the outside world. Not far from the castle, in a provincial French village, lived a beautiful young girl named Belle. Belle was unlike anyone else in the village. She was kind, intelligent, and loved to read. Belle's days were filled with adventure and imagination as she devoured book after book from the village library. To her, each story was a new world. The villagers admired her beauty but found her peculiar. "She's nothing like the rest of us," they would say, shaking their heads with a mix of awe and confusion. Belle lived with her father, Maurice, an eccentric but loving inventor. He spent his days tinkering in his workshop, dreaming up fantastical inventions. "One day, my dear," he would say, "I'll invent something truly magnificent." Belle loved her father dearly and supported his dreams, though she often felt out of place in the village. One day, while walking through the bustling market, Belle was approached by Gaston, the most handsome and arrogant man in the village. "Belle, why don't you marry me?" he asked, puffing out his chest. "Our children would be beautiful just like me." But Belle wasn't interested. Gaston could never understand her love for books or her dreams of a life beyond the village. "I'm sorry, Gaston," she said politely, "but I'm not looking to marry right now." Gaston was baffled. How could she resist him? He was certain that Belle would change her mind eventually. One morning, Maurice decided to take his latest invention to a fair in a nearby village. He kissed Belle goodbye and set off on his horse-drawn cart. But a sudden storm blew in, and he lost his way in the dark, twisting forest. The wind howled, and the trees seemed to reach out with shadowy branches. Maurice stumbled upon the beast's castle, its towering spires visible through the mist. Seeking refuge, he entered the castle, marveling at its grandeur despite its eerie silence. Inside, enchanted objects greeted him warmly. Lumiere, a charming candelabra, and Cogsworth, a precise but fussy clock, offered him shelter and a warm meal. "Welcome, monsieur," Lumiere said with a flourish. "Please make yourself at home." But when the beast discovered Maurice, he was furious. "You dare to trespass in my castle!" the beast roared, capturing Maurice and locking him in a dungeon. "You'll never escape," the beast growled, his heart hardened by years of isolation and despair. When Maurice's horse returned home without him, Belle knew something was wrong. "Something must have happened to father," she said, determination in her eyes. She saddled up and followed the horse back through the forest, her heart pounding with worry. The path was dark and foreboding, but she pressed on. At last, Belle arrived at the castle. It loomed before her, mysterious and grand, with its gates creaking open as if inviting her in. Inside, the enchanted objects whispered among themselves. "The girl could be the one," Lumiere said, hopeful. "She could break the spell." Belle found her father, locked in the dungeon, weak and cold. "Father," she cried, reaching through the bars to hold his hand. "Belle, you must leave," Maurice urged. "It's not safe." But Belle refused to abandon him. Suddenly, the beast appeared. "Who dares trespass here?" he growled, his voice echoing through the stone halls. Belle stood tall, fear in her eyes but courage in her heart. "Please, let my father go," she pleaded. "Take me instead." The beast was taken aback. He had never encountered such bravery. After a moment's hesitation, he agreed. "Very well," he said gruffly. "You will stay, and your father will go free." With tears in her eyes, Belle watched as her father was led away. "Goodbye, father," she whispered. "I will be all right." Life in the castle was nothing like Belle had imagined. Though it was grand, it was also filled with sadness and mystery. The enchanted objects, however, were delighted to have her there. They hoped she might be the one to break the spell. "Welcome, mademoiselle," Lumiere exclaimed, bouncing with excitement. "We are at your service." Mrs. Potts, a kind-hearted teapot, offered her tea and comfort. "You'll see, dear," she said gently. "Things will get better." Belle was invited to explore the castle, yet there was one rule. She must never enter the West Wing. Curiosity tugged at her mind, but she respected the beast's demand. In time, Belle discovered a magnificent library stretching from floor to ceiling, filled with books of every kind. Her eyes lit up with joy. "I've never seen so many books in my life," she exclaimed, her heart leaping. The beast watched from a distance, intrigued by Belle's joy and spirit. While he was gruff and awkward, her presence began to warm his heart. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, Belle and the beast began to form an unlikely friendship. They would dine together, and though the beast struggled with manners, Belle found his efforts endearing. One evening, Belle asked, "How did you come to live here? Why do you hide away?" The beast hesitated, pain flickering in his eyes. "It's a long story," he replied softly, his voice tinged with regret. Belle saw the kindness beneath his gruff exterior. She began to look beyond his appearance, seeing the lonely soul within. They spent time in the gardens, walking among the roses and under the shade of ancient trees. The beast showed Belle his favorite spots, and in return she shared stories from her books. "Tell me more about this one," the beast requested, pointing to a book about far-off lands. Belle read aloud, her voice filling the air like music. Slowly, the castle seemed to come alive with warmth and laughter. One winter's night, the beast decided to host a special dinner and ball for Belle. "Would you join me for dinner?" he asked, hope in his voice. "There will be dancing." Belle agreed, touched by his effort. That evening, the castle sparkled with candlelight and music filled the halls. Belle wore a gown of golden silk, her hair adorned with roses. The beast, in his finest attire, looked more gentlemanly than beastly. They waltzed under the starlit ceiling, a gentle connection growing between them. The enchanted objects watched with bated breath, hoping their curse might soon be broken. But as the evening drew to a close, curiosity got the better of Belle. She slipped away from the ballroom, wandering toward the forbidden west wing. Inside, she found a room in disarray, mirrors shattered, and the enchanted rose glowing under a glass dome. Its petals were wilting, a sign of time running out. "What is this?" Belle whispered, reaching toward the rose. Suddenly the beast appeared, his eyes filled with anger and fear. "I told you to stay away!" he roared, his voice echoing off the walls. Belle backed away, frightened. "I'm sorry," she stammered. "I didn't mean to intrude." Overwhelmed by shame and frustration, the beast retreated, leaving Belle alone with her thoughts. That night, Belle decided she must leave. Though her heart ached, she needed to see her father. The enchanted objects were saddened, but understood. "You must follow your heart, dear," Mrs. Potts said gently. The beast, hearing of Belle's decision, was heartbroken, but knew he could not keep her against her will. He gave her a magical mirror, a window to the outside world. "Take this," he said softly, "so you can look back and remember me." Belle rode home through the forest, the mirror in her hand. Back in the village, Maurice was overjoyed to see her. "I was so worried about you, my dear," he exclaimed, hugging her tightly. Gaston, however, was suspicious of Belle's absence. He cornered her in the village square. "Where have you been, Belle?" he demanded. "What secrets are you hiding?" When Belle refused to answer, Gaston rallied the villagers. "Her father is a madman, and she's conspiring with him," he shouted, turning the crowd against them. Belle, desperate to protect her father, showed them the beast in the magic mirror. "He's not a monster," she insisted. "He's my friend." Gaston saw the opportunity to rise as a hero. "To the castle," he rallied. "We must kill the beast before he harms us." As the villagers stormed the castle, Belle knew she had to warn the beast. She raced back through the forest, her heart pounding with fear for her friend. The castle was under siege. Gaston and the villagers battered down the gates, torches blazing in the night. Inside, the enchanted objects gathered their courage to defend their home. "We must protect the castle," Lumiere declared, rallying his fellow enchanted friends. "For the beast, for Belle." As the villagers invaded, Lumiere, Cogsworth, Mrs. Potts, and others used their unique forms to fight back, creating chaos and confusion. Meanwhile, Gaston sought out the beast, determined to end him. He found the beast on the rooftops, gazing out over the forest, lost in sorrow. "Come out and fight, beast," Gaston taunted, weapon in hand. The beast was reluctant, heartbroken at the thought of losing Belle. "I am not a monster," he said quietly, "but I will protect my home." The two clashed on the castle's parapets, fighting fiercely amid the stormy night. Belle arrived just in time to see the struggle. "Stop, Gaston!" she cried, rushing forward. Distracted, Gaston lost his footing. The beast, in a moment of mercy, spared him. But Gaston, consumed by rage, struck the beast when his back was turned. As Gaston moved to strike again, he slipped, tumbling into the dark abyss below. Belle rushed to the beast's side, tears streaming down her face. "Please, don't leave me," she whispered, holding him close. The beast looked into her eyes, filled with regret and sorrow. "At least I got to see you one last time," he murmured, his strength fading. As the last petal of the enchanted rose began to fall, Belle spoke words that would change everything. "I love you," she confessed, her heart full of truth. In that moment, a brilliant light surrounded them. The curse was breaking. The beast was lifted into the air, transformed by the power of Belle's love. When the light faded, a handsome prince stood before her, his eyes filled with wonder and joy. Belle gasped, recognizing the kindness she had seen beneath the beast's form. "It's you," she said, a smile breaking through her tears. With the curse lifted, the castle transformed. The enchanted objects returned to their human forms, laughing and embracing one another. The prince and Belle stood together, surrounded by their friends. "Thank you, Belle," the prince said, "for seeing past what I was to who I could be." The village, too, was changed. The prince and Belle opened the castle to all, sharing knowledge, music, and joy with everyone. And so, they lived not just happily ever after, but generously ever after, teaching others to see with their hearts. Moral of the story: true beauty comes from within. Love and kindness can break the darkest curses. Seeing others for who they are, not what they appear to be, is the greatest gift of all. Thank you for listening to the story of Beauty and the Beast. Remember, dear dreamers, that love and kindness can light the way through the darkest of times. Close your eyes now and let your dreams be filled with castles, enchanted roses, and the promise of happy endings. Good night, sweet dreams.